Join me in welcoming my good friend Robin Ricci. Hey Robin, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. I'm excited. My book's launching today.
Yeah, the book is called Shattered Pieces Mended with Gold. We're going
Mhm.
to talk about that. But first, tell us just a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Sure. So I'm 29. I'm a mom. I have two kids, and I'm in a relationship, kind of, off and on. I show up in the world by showing kindness to everyone that I meet, and regardless of the bad things that I've faced, it's just kind of always been in my nature. I've lived by be humble and be kind my whole life, and that's pretty much how I live my life.
It's a good way to live your life, to be humble, be kind,
Hmm.
and to just love life. All right.
Yes.
So, shattered pieces mended with gold. Obviously, there's some difficult things in here. Let's jump
Mhm.
into the tough stuff so we can get to the gold.
Okay.
What are the things that happened in your life that shattered you?
Um, I'll start with where it first started. My father was extremely abusive, physically, emotionally, sexually to me, basically until I moved out at 18. He really did a number on me, and I have a lot of scars that are still healing, that I'm still working on, filling those injured pieces of myself with gold. But I'm getting there, and after that horrible relationship with my father, I had multiple relationships with men that were maybe not physically abusive, but certainly sexually and emotionally abusive, just because I didn't know any better. And I had thought a lot of times that sex equaled love, and I was taken advantage of a lot for that, for being too sexual or whatever, and expecting it too much, or whatever men wanted to tell me over the years. Um, I've just been hurt a lot by men in general in this world, and yeah, that's my story.
We're going to change that one phrase for you, and we're going to change that word men to little boys.
Yeah, yeah, yes, definitely not ever been with a you know, real man, honestly. And I'm with someone now that I'm trying to not necessarily make them be the man that I want, but hopefully inspire them to be the man that I know that they can be. And give them the chance to be that for me, because I do now know my worth and what I will and will not accept, and have to put that out there and hope that they respect that as well.
A lot of girls struggle with that. They maybe one of the biggest flaws of being a female is the ability to see potential.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because you're always thinking like, I don't know, you can mold somebody, and truthfully, you can't really change anyone unless they want to change. So instead of hoping that, oh, this is not a red flag, or maybe it's going to change one day, it's more up to you to decide, if it doesn't change, am I going to put up with it? And, you know, especially if you give them the opportunity to say, these things really bother me in a relationship, how you're acting or whatever, and they choose not to change, then that's totally up to them. That's who they are. That's not on you. That's not saying they don't love you. It's just saying that they are not able to be the man or person that you need, and you kind of have to move on with that.
That's a tough one. Um, what advice would you give to young girls entering into the dating realm and stuff like that to save themselves from that instead of learning it the hard way like you did?
Whew. I mean, I honestly, if I could tell everyone to not start dating until you totally love yourself first and know your worth, then that's what I would say ultimately, because I jumped into it right away trying to find love and trying to fill these holes that I had with a relationship, thinking that that's what was going to make me whole. And I've been through various relationships. I've been in love, whether or not it was reciprocated. It's definitely not the answer to everything. I lost my train of thought, but if you could guide me back on the path, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. What could a young girl do to
Mhm.
begin the process of loving themselves? That's so powerful.
So I do think that having positive role models is helpful. Unfortunately, the media is not the greatest place to teach young children, and if they don't have parents, that's where they learn it from, and that's where I learned it from. So I have the extreme vision of like the happily ever after fairy tale that I wished and dreamed of having growing up and chased for many years of my life, instead of realizing that the real fairy tale is falling in love with yourself. And it is very hard being a young girl, especially these days. Everything on the radio, everything in the media, it's just like you have to look a certain way, you have to act a certain way, you have to be the cool one. It's like be true to yourself, no matter how scary it is, because the right people are going to love you for who you are. You don't want somebody to love a facade of you or an act that you have to try to keep up for the rest of your life. You want to be authentically you. And that's scary. So there is a lot of inner work that you have to do in order to get to that point. And to tell you exactly the steps to take, I would say maybe just date yourself. Like go literally to places by yourself, because that was the scariest thing for me. It's like I'm going to go to a movie by myself and look completely stupid. And that was just my young brain thinking that, when really nobody pays attention. I think that's the biggest thing is you think everybody's eyes are on you, and they're really on their own insecurities most of the time. So date yourself first.
One of the most powerful things that anybody said in radio interviews I've done is Claire Anstey. She said, we're riding to work on a bus and we're worried about all of the things people are judging us for, when in truth,
Mm.
they're busy worrying about all the
Hmm.
things everybody's judging them for.
It's true, because you think about it. I mean, if I think about how many times I'm doubtful of going out in public or whatever, especially after I shave my head, it definitely creeps up when I have to make a constant choice to be like, who cares? And honestly, to remind myself that everybody has those insecurities. Even whoever you think is the most beautiful person on the world, if you really talk to them, they'll probably tell you like, oh, I hate the way this or that looks. And you'll be like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. But everybody is dealing with stuff. So that's so true.
The funniest part of that, because you had said it earlier, and I was thinking of the TV show Keeping Up with the
Oh,
Kardashians.
yes, yes.
And imagine how powerful a show about the Kardashians learning to keep up with the person that they wish they
Mhm.
were.
Yes. Even a show like that, honestly, where it just shows regular women in media, not these plastic surgery Barbies that obviously are beautiful to look at. I can't deny it. But at the same time, that's not the only standard of beauty that there is. And the media definitely needs to put an average woman on TV and their family. And I would watch that reality show like just a freaking normal family that has to deal with stuff like lawyers and court and things like of that nature, like I've had to deal with. I would watch that because that's more real life. That's more interesting to me than a fairy tale that is really completely unattainable unless you are Kim Kardashian and her whole family, which is like what, 10, 15 people out of a billion. So there's definitely not enough media attention for women of normal sizes, men of normal sizes, anything like that. Even Disney, that I love, all the princesses, cookie cutter, skinny, beautiful, big eyed princesses. Like women and girls need figures that are fuller and that are have blemishes and things like that, so they know that that's normal.
Yeah, for sure. I've always said, because I love rom coms, but I've always said the best part about it is they end at that absolute perfect moment in life. And then, the rest of life happens. I always
Hmm.
think of Sleepless in Seattle,
Oh
Tom
yeah.
Hanks and Meg Ryan, they still both live on opposite coasts
Yeah, what
and all of
happens?
the other things.
Yeah. Like real life happens after that happily ever after, and yes, you hope for the happily ever after, but you have to work for it. You have to work for it. It doesn't just happen. Love is a choice. Like maybe not every day it's a choice because you just love them, but can be a choice if another opportunity presents itself to cheat. Like that is a choice that you're making on for that person that you love, if you're going to be faithful or not. And even when they're pissed off one day or whatever in a bad mood, you're making that choice like, man, this guy's getting on my nerves today. I could leave, but it's an active choice every day. Love is, it's not just something that happens to you and you have to work at it.
Absolutely. So, and share as much of it as you're comfortable with. So, no pressure here, but
Hmm.
recently you went through a pretty rough patch.
Hmm.
Can you talk through some of the things that happened over the course of the last month or so for you?
Yeah, so kind of to start with the downward spiral was getting let go from my job without like notice or really a definitive answer if I was even fired by my own mom. And that really kind of killed me. She basically ghosted me after us having a really good relationship for the past 3 years. I loved her and I cared about her. And when she did that, it kind of just shattered me. And then following that, shortly after, I got a phone call from my father who offered to pay me a large sum of money in order to sign a contract saying that I won't talk about any of the sexual stuff that happened when I was a kid. And, I'll be honest, for a long time, I kind of thought I maybe either made it up that he had done it or I was imagining it because it didn't feel quite real to me. And I didn't realize until recently that it's because I disassociated from it because I couldn't deal with it as a kid. I had to separate myself into, I don't even know, maybe another version of me that had had to deal with that was strong enough to deal with it at the time. Um, and After he confirmed that for me, it was just kind of like my whole world kind of fell apart. I think when you hear that both of your parents that gave birth to you don't care about you and one of them did do all these horrible things to you and you know that the other one had to have known about it because we were a very close family. We didn't have friends outside of our family. We were always together. So it's like for me to put those pieces together just kind of broke me. And I was trying my best to deal with it as well as I could. Being a mom, I didn't want to leave my kids, but I did know in the back of my mind that I would have to end up going to the hospital. I just didn't know or have the support to do it really. And then that day when everything went down, I was with my kids. Well, I was in the bath and my kids were there and my partner at the time was there. And he decided that that was a perfect time to take them away from me. I was, very emotional, having a hard time, I guess, with having a manic episode. I am bipolar or diagnosed bipolar. Um, I don't know how accurate that is yet. There's still more work to be done in therapy, but that's what they came up with while I was in the hospital. And I was there for 2 weeks. And it definitely, I feel like, again, I had to go into like a different mode. I called myself Athena when I was there because I was imagining that I was like this warrior because I was scared to death to go to the hospital. And honestly, it's hard to get the amount of crap I had to get the help that I needed was insane. I was at a different hospital. They like tranked me basically, saying that I was like going crazy. And meanwhile, I'm like, I know I didn't do anything crazy, but I was hearing voices in the hospital. So yeah, that's crazy. But man, it's not easy. Like, I'll tell you what, if people are really struggling and need to go through the same route I did, you have to be strong. You have to, because otherwise you're not gonna like, I don't even know what I would have done. Obviously, I was kind of forced into it. I wanted to leave the first hospital that I was at because it was so weird that they were like keeping me there and I wasn't under arrest and there was no reason why I couldn't leave, but they just held me down on that bed and they put a shot in my arm. And then I woke up in a different hospital where I stayed for 2 weeks and then was released back to mom life. And that was not an easy transition either. I mean, you're protected basically for like 2 weeks and you're by yourself for the most part, besides your peers, and you don't have to worry about anybody except for yourself. And to go back into life with worrying about your children and the relationships that you have, it was overwhelming.
So let's talk about the mending with gold. There's been some really amazing things that have happened in your life the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Share some of that with us.
I think the most powerful thing is I did end up taking just even, I think it was a day and overnight to myself because I was so unhappy and I couldn't figure out why. Because the first couple of days I got back from the hospital, I felt so free. I didn't feel worried. Like I had all the reason in the world to be worried. I don't have a job, but I wasn't worried. I felt like comfort. And I think it's because while I was there, I was reading the Bible and I didn't really put it together until I came home like a little bit after that, and then took this trip by myself. And I just begged God for like an answer, like what I need to do in order to be happy. And, you know, he the way that I hear God is through my own voice in my head. And it was basically like happiness is the one word that I heard. And for some reason, I just kept thinking about what is weighing me down. And it's the happiness of everyone around me. I feel that burden on my shoulders to make those people happy. And in that moment, I was like, wow, what if I just let go of that? And then what would happen? It would just be me that I would have to make happy. Like, what's the difference of, obviously, I love the people around me, my sons, I want them to be happy. But at the same time, if I'm doing everything that I can for them, as not because I have to, but because I love them and I want them, to be happy. But that pressure there, if my son has a meltdown, I no longer have to be like, oh my God, I'm the world's worst mom. No, I know that I did the right things up to this point. I'm doing the right thing through this point. I'm not going to let his moods affect me and make it on me, if that makes sense. And same with my partner. It's like, he's always complaining about things, not being good enough. And it was like just weighing me down, having doubts in the things that I'm doing. And it affected me, and it ruined my confidence and my peace in that moment when I had first come back from the hospital. And so I just decided in that moment to let it go. And then a few days later, I just really found Jesus. And it was during a prayer, and for some reason I just had like a vision of him hugging me. And in that moment I was like, how did I get so far away from this path? Because at some point in 2017 I was like ready to kill myself, and I walked into a church. Give me just a second, I have to let them know that I'm doing this live really quick because he just came back in. Okay,
No worries. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be right back.
We're here with Robin Ricci. She is talking to us about her amazing book, Shattered, Pieces Mended with Gold. And her kids just walked back in the house. And all of you that are moms or dads, you understand the concept of having to have to be a parent 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when you're live. The advantage that I have now is that, my dog came in and laid on my foot for a while, and you didn't notice it. She's a little bit less, well, depending on the moment, she's a little bit less demanding than a child is. But, so she just stepped off for a second here to let them know she's on live, and then she'll be back here with us. And we'll continue talking about being mended with gold.
Yeah, so I'm sorry about that. I just wanted nobody to come in to interrupt what we're doing. So they're aware now.
No worries. So you had this incredible moment. And in total transparency for everybody listening or watching,
Yeah.
I was so blessed. I got to be in a messaging, I was messaging back and forth with Robin at the moment. And I'll never forget. Can I tell the story a little bit?
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I'll never forget. So we were messaging back and forth, and mostly I was just playing Robin a bunch of, sending her links for a bunch of YouTube videos. If you guys haven't seen the, her name's Taya, the young lady from Hillsong Worship.
With the bald head.
Yeah, in Israel, she was completely bald, and Robin's wearing a wig right now.
Yes.
But, she shaved her head, and so it has that total like, oh my gosh, it looks just totally like you. I was sending all of the different songs from this concert that they did, all worship songs, and at one point Robin said, I'm listening to this sermon. I'll be back in just a little bit. And this is text messages, so it's not like a conversation like we're having right now. But then, it was probably, one time during the middle of it, you said, and I don't know if you remember this, you said, I don't know if it's my ADHD kicking in or whatever, but I don't know if I'm going to finish this or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you got quiet again. You just came back. It was about another 10 or 15 minutes later, and you're like, I found Jesus.
Yeah, I know. I just kept watching, and that's my brain is like that where I can't focus on one task, especially with everything that I have going on. It's very hard, but for some reason that I can't remember even which sermon it was. I watched so many in the meantime, but I just remember that vision of I'm sitting on my bed here, and then all of a sudden I feel like Jesus sitting next to me with his arms around me, and I was like, this is it. I found it. I feel lighter. I found him. And I feel like slowly, I've been working a lot on myself to fill the cracks with gold, like just by loving myself. And that's hard. And I need help with that. And to have somebody like Jesus who loves you no matter what, and to read more about that love and to know more about it just has, I think, helped tremendously speed up that process of healing me.
And we were talking earlier about the young girl who needs to learn to love herself. I think that element of Jesus is huge in that. And
Hmm.
I mean, I was blessed. I mean, I lost him recently, but my dad was an amazing father. But a lot of people don't have that. But everybody has access to Jesus.
Yes, and there's a hard, like there's always a line for me because I've never been in a religious family, and they've always, I don't know, kind of ran away from it, I think. Obviously now I understand why. But for me, I've never wanted to push religion on anybody because I think that they can make their own decision, but absolutely think that it's so important for children to at least be exposed to it, whether it's through like Bible school or just like their parents kind of being like, hey, there's also this person, God. There's this story that we can tell you, and then they can make a decision whether or not, they want to learn more about it. But definitely, if I could, I would introduce every young person to Jesus from a young age, so they know growing up that they always have someone in their corner, and that you don't have to be worried about being alone and settle for less just because you don't want to be alone because you're not with Jesus.
So, and the book is called Shattered Pieces Mended with Gold. I am going to put the link to it in the chat in case you didn't see it in the description, which it's there as well. Talk to me a little bit about how it feels to be. And I actually said to you that day, it's never about really mending. It's about Jesus really showing you that you always are and always were a diamond. But what
Hmm.
does it feel like to be mended with gold, to use the phrase from your book?
Honestly, for me, it's almost like I think of it as golden armor. Like I think that the scars are still definitely there, but they're faded, and I'm just plated in like this gold armor of love and protection and strength and hope. And I think that's what's kind of holding it all together, and that's like the final piece of my outfit is like I can pretend I walk out with like a sheath of armor that's gold plated, and it's because of everything that I've been through in my life that I've overcome. And yeah, that's kind of how I picture it.
I love that. Thinking about your life the week before you went into the hospital and what this last week's been like, give us a comparison between the two of those.
I was so confused. I didn't know who I was. I mean, I still don't really know who my parents are, but at that point I was like letting it affect me so much. I had so many unanswered questions, and it was just eating me alive, and I didn't know myself well enough to not let it bother me. And then fast forward to this week, I feel like it doesn't matter where I came from. It doesn't matter, my past. What matters is I know who I am now. And that is a very strong individual who has a lot of, hope for her future, for the world. And I think that that's a really important transformation. I do kind of feel like the caterpillar going into the cocoon in the hospital and then coming out as like this multifaceted person who has strength, who has shyness, who has, fear, and like can still be Robin. All these things, all these different emotions that I feel can still be Robin, and I can still be strong even when I'm crying. I can still be powerful even when I'm scared, things like that.
That's awesome. So, for the person that's listening, what's one thing that they could do right now that would help them?
Um, Well, on a personal level, I would say open a Bible or listen to a worship song and see how you feel. And then, if that doesn't work for you, I think it would be to just keep your chin up and to keep your head held high in whatever you're doing. Be proud of who you are. And if there's a change that you've been like waiting to do, like say cut your hair short or I don't know, wear your makeup a weird way or whatever you want to do, just start small and then go out in public and if that's your fear and do that. It's kind of like working on your fears one at a time. Mine is public speaking. Like this is a huge fear for me, but it's easier because it's my friend Steve that I talk to all the time and I don't see anybody else, which is great. But it's a big step for me because I get nervous and I feel like I'm better on in typing and but I'm doing it, and that's the most important thing is when you decide you're going to do something, then do it. Obviously, unless something happens beyond your control, then don't do it. But if you can, take that step.
Absolutely. So the book is called Shattered Pieces Mended with Gold. It is available actually today for free on Amazon.
Yeah.
In fact, let's do something fun here live that I don't usually do because I've seen some of the things already today.
Okay.
Just for those of you who are curious, because making people bestsellers is what I do.
Mm,
The book is currently a bestseller in 3 categories. It's still actually showing in the paid categories, and it is free today.
wow.
So it'll drop into the top 10 and at least those three, probably others. Really, really great book. Whether you're suffering from bipolar depression
Hmm.
or you just need, something to make you feel strong, this book is really, really good for you. Robin, take a couple of minutes here before we end up and just give some words of encouragement to the people that are listening.
Well, in my life, I've had a lot of instances where I felt very, very alone and very damaged and unworthwhile. And I think for especially any of you out there that are feeling like that, I just want you to know that you're not alone, whether you can or can't or don't want to buy this book. That's okay. If you want to, I do have, a business on Facebook that I'm trying to start where I can reach out to those who really need someone to listen to them and someone to possibly give advice if they need to, or someone to just tell them that no matter what, you're loved, no matter what you've done, no matter what's on your heart, you're loved. And I want to be that person for you. And I want to inspire people through this book that just because you've had a horrible hand dealt to you doesn't mean that you can't still be happy, that there is still Jesus at the end of the road that's going to walk with you for the rest of your life. And as soon as you let him in, you're going to feel that weight lift. And I know people talk about it and it's like until they're blue to their face, you don't believe them until you feel it. And I told Steve, I can't feel it. Normally it's like a worship song that'll get me there. And I had to keep looking. I had to keep looking for the thing that was going to open my heart completely to Jesus. And I think that I would be happy to talk to anybody who is interested in that route, anybody who has things that are going on with their life similar to mine, any age, anybody, any reason. I'm there for you if you want to talk to me.
I love that. I just put the link in the chat as well for your website. Give us an idea what it would, or rather for your Facebook group. Give us an idea what it costs and what people could do if they wanted to work with you or talk to you.
Sure. So my service is basically $1 per minute for a voice chat, like on the phone, and minimum $15. And basically, that's a conversation that you can tell me again anything that might be weighing you down, like a burden that you've been carrying, a secret you've been carrying, something that you're ashamed of that you've done, or whether it's relationship advice. I mean, it's anything that is weighing on you that you wish you could just turn to somebody who completely understands you and there's nobody there, but there's me. And then there is an option for a video call if you prefer that more intimate setting, and that would be just $2 per hour, so $30 minimum for 15 minutes.
$2 per minute, not $2
That's
an
what I
hour.
mean. Yes. Yeah. $2 per minute. Yes. Thank you.
All right. Well, do get the book Shattered Pieces Mended with
Yes,
Gold.
please.
It's available for free today. You'll be glad that you did. And reach out to Robin, facebook.com/magic in the mundane. It's MAGIKINTHEMUNDANE. Yes, I did look at that, so I made sure I spelled that right. And the link's there for you too. Or, of course, you could look up Robin by her name, Robin Ricci, on Facebook as well. Robin, thanks so much for your book and for all that you do in the world and for spending some time with us here today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for all that you've done and your encouragement and support through all of this. It's been a real blessing.